Just say Dodge, so he'll just...
No, Chevy's good too.
I don't know what that is.
Duramax, that's a motor. It's a diesel. It's what makes it wax smooth.
I know what a motor is.
No, wax smooth. It's diesel.
I don't do this stuff. Anyway, okay. So, let's go ahead and look at, listen up. We have a few notes to take, and then I'll give you some time for homework. So we are looking at quadratic equation area problems. We have two types of problems we're going to talk about: area and the projectile motion problems, which we'll get what we kind of talked about on the warm-ups. So as I look at these quadratic equation area problems, go ahead and get your yellow reference sheet out as well, because we're going to have to be solving some of these. So we're going to go ahead and look at number 1. So given the diagram below, find the value of x if the area of the rectangle is 78 square meters. The first thing I always look for, anytime I do a story problem, we haven't done story problems for a while, what do I always look for first? This is good. This is reassuring. Whenever I read a story problem, what do I always look for first? What are they asking for? I want to find the value of x. I just kind of underline that. So that helps you at the end tell you if you've answered the question. I need to know what is the value of x. And there's going to be a little different kind of, as we go through a couple, they're going to be asking for different things. So let's see what they tell me. They give me a diagram below, and that's a diagram is a what? Oh, thank you. A little more specific. Rectangle. So they give me a rectangle, and I have the length and the height labeled. So the length is x plus 7 and the height is x. What else do they tell me? What is 78? The area. So let's think about this. I somehow need to come up with an equation so I can find x. I can solve for x. So what equation would I come up with if I'm talking about the area of a rectangle? Area is what? Length times width. So since they give you the area 78, they give me the length and the width of the rectangle, I can just plug stuff in here. What is the area? Okay. What is the length? X. It doesn't really matter what you choose for each one. I usually do the length as the bottom one, so length would be x plus 7. It doesn't really matter. And the width would be what? X. Doesn't really matter if you switch those. So set up your formula from what should give you. Don't make it harder than it is. They give you the area, 78. I give you the length and the width, x plus 7 and x. Now I want to find the value of x. I want to solve for x. So if I look at my equation, what would be the first thing I would need to do to solve for x? I can't minus 7 yet. Distribute. I can write the x out front if you want to first. It doesn't really matter. I'm multiplying by x. So whether I'm multiplying by x at the end or if I multiply it before the x plus 7, it's the same difference. So if I put it before it, it's a little easier to see I'm going to distribute this. So if I distribute the x, what do I get? X squared plus 7x. So 78 equals x squared plus 7x. Now as I look at this, what type of equation do I have? Okay, and they're called what? I see an exponent of a what? 2. What is the equation called if my highest exponent is 2? Quadratic, thank you. So it is a quadratic equation, and I need to solve this for x. So I know how to solve a quadratic equation. Use your yellow reference sheet. I have 3 ways to solve a quadratic equation because I want to know x. So the first way is the square root method. Can I use the square root method for this? Well, we'll get to that in a second. Can I use the square root method? No. Nope, because of the 7x. This is just like we did yesterday. So now we need to get it equal to 0, like Miranda said. So as I get it equal to 0, what would be the easiest way to get it equal to 0? Subtract 78. So I have 0 equals x squared plus 7x minus 78. Okay, if you don't have a calculator, go grab one. I would drive a Nissan.
Is that what you drive?
I'm thinking of the most obscure truck you can think of, which is hard for me to do.
You also said that a Dodge Caravan truck.
Are you really surprised?
Yeah, because it says it in the name without your teacher.
Okay, so as I look at this, I have it equal to 0, so I want to try to factor this. So as I look at trying to factor this, is there a GCF? No. So we can start with the two parentheses. It is a trinomial, and there is a positive 1 in front of x squared. So we can try it like this, because if we can do it like this, it's going to take a lot less time than trying to do quadratic formula. So I need to try to think of two numbers that multiply to give me a negative 78 and add to give me 7. So if they multiply to give me a negative, what do my signs have to be? 1 plus, 1 minus. So go through. I do not know this off the top of my head. So go through, take 78, and start dividing it by things. Now, 78 is an even number. So I would start taking 78, divide it by even numbers, and go from there. So I would take 78 divided by 2, and see if the two numbers add to give me 7. 78 divided by 4, 78 divided by 6. 78 divided by 8. Keep dividing them by even numbers. I would start with 2 until you find 2, and technically they're going to subtract to give you 7 because they're two different signs. Okay, let's try. So you all should be dividing by numbers to find them. So what are two numbers that multiply to give me negative 78 and add to give me 7? 13 and negative 6. They have to add to give me a positive 7. My bigger number has to be positive. Now, this is factored. Have I answered the question? No, I want to find the value of x. I want to know what does x equal. So we're going to take each part and set it equal to 0. So 0 equals x plus 13 and 0 equals x minus 6. Solve those equations. So I get one value of x to be negative 13. Add 6, and I get one value to be 6. Now with story problems, you always have to go back and look and say, can both of those work? So can both of these, negative 13 and 6, be values for x? Look at what x represents. X represents a what? No, look at your story problem. X represents the what? No. Look at your diagram. X represents a width or length. It represents one side of the rectangle. Can negative 13 be the length of one side of a rectangle? Can I have a negative length? No. So negative 13 will not work. So your only answer that will work is 6. You cannot have a negative length. So if x is one side of a rectangle, I cannot have a negative 13-inch side of a rectangle, or negative 13 feet side of a rectangle. Sorry, I can't speak. So when you are talking about sides, you can only have the positive answer. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, let's look at number 6. We're going to skip around because I want to do some of the harder ones. Let's look at number 6. A little different. It's the same sort of idea, though. Let's read it and see what they have. The length of a rectangle is 6 meters less than its width. Find the dimensions of the rectangle if its area is 27 square meters. So if I want to find, what are they asking for first? Dimensions. Find the dimensions. I like underlining what they're asking for. I want to find the dimensions. So how is this different than the first example I just did?
Finding the dimensions of the area.
What was I finding in the first one?
X.
X. Now I'm finding the dimensions. So we'll talk about how that's going to be different in a second. The first one we were finding x values. This one we're finding the dimensions. So let's look at, I'm still dealing with a rectangle. So I still deal with a rectangle. So I'm going to have the length and the width. So let's see what we can, they don't give me a diagram, so I don't really necessarily know what the length is and what the width is. I have to read and get those. So what does it tell me about the length? 6 meters less than its width. So how would I represent 6 meters less than its width? Okay, we can do x minus 6. Now if it's less than, remember it goes on the end after the x. So if the length is x minus 6, what would the width be? No? The length is x, the length is 6 meters less than the width. If I put x minus 6, what represented the width? X. Because the length is 6 meters less than the width, x minus 6, so the width is x. I want to find the dimensions if the area is 27 meters. So the area is 27. And then how would I represent if these are the length and width of a rectangle and the area is 27, what do I do with the length and width? Area formula for rectangle. Multiply them. Length times width. X times x minus 6. It doesn't really matter the order. Commutative property says multiplication you can switch. So it's going to be width times the length, or length times the width, however you want to write it. Okay, now it looks similar to the one we just did. What are we going to do first?
X squared minus 6x.
Distribute x squared minus 6x. Okay, it's a quadratic because I see x squared. I have 3 ways to solve it. Square root, can I use square root? No, because it's 6x. Let's try to factor. Whether I do factoring or quadratic formula, I have to get it equal to 0. How am I going to get this equal to 0? Subtract 27, subtract 27. So 0 equals x squared minus 6x minus 27. And let's try to factor this if I can. There's no GCF. How would I start trying to factor this? What's going to go in the front? X. And as I think, I need 2 numbers that multiply to give me negative 27 and add to give me negative 6. What are my signs going to be? Negative and positive. That's the only way to multiply to get a negative. So what are 2 numbers that multiply to give me negative 27 and add to give me negative 6? Negative 9, positive 3. Any questions so far? Same idea we did yesterday. Set them equal to 0. 0 equals x plus 3. 0 equals x minus 9. Subtract 3. Subtract 3. Negative 3 equals x. Add 9. 9 equals x. Always think about it in context of your story problem. X represents the width. So which of these numbers cannot be a width? I cannot have a negative width. I cannot measure a side of something into the negative. So, have I answered the question? I got 9 equals x. Have I answered the question? What do they want to know? Dimensions. If I put down x equals 9, does that tell me the dimension? No. So I'm going to need the width. What's my width? 9. And I want you to be a little more specific. Meters. I should have been more specific on that one. That's okay. Meters. I forget how to do meters, so just write meters. So the width is 9 meters because the width was x. X is 9, so the width is 9 meters. My length will be, how do I find my length?
9 minus 6.
X is 9. What's 9 minus 6?
Meters.
3 meters. So make sure you answer the question. If they're asking for the dimensions, I need to see the width is this, the length is this. If they're saying just find the x values, all you need to find is x equals. Okay, any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, let's look at number 4. We'll be done for this page.
So we're going back.
Yep, back to 4. Skipping around. Okay, let's look at 4. The dimensions of a rectangle can be expressed as x plus 3 and x minus 8. If the area of the rectangle is 60 square inches, what is the value of x? What are they looking for? Value of x. So once I get x equals, that is the answer to the question. It doesn't say the dimension, so I don't need to plug in and find the length and the width. They're just looking for the value of x. So as I look at this, what's nice about this story problem already? Yeah, there's not as much stuff in it, okay. What else? It gives you the dimensions. It gives you the length and the width. It doesn't really matter which one is which, but it already gives it to you. And you're still dealing with the area of a rectangle. And what is the area of a rectangle? 60. So the area equals length times width. So this is going to be 60 equals what? Do what? No. What were the dimensions of my rectangle? No. What were the dimensions of my rectangle?
X plus 3.
You have to have x with that. X plus 3 times x minus 8. Length times width. It doesn't matter which one is which. They tell me the dimensions are x plus 3 and x minus 8. One is the width, one is the length. You're going to multiply them. Now as I look at this, I need to solve for x. I want to know the values of x. So to get started on this, what am I going to have to do first? Nope. You will eventually. But before I do that, do I distribute?
Yes.
Kind of, but what kind of fancy distributing am I going to have to do?
Just the numbers.
No? I have a binomial times a binomial. So what's it called when I'm distributing, technically? A binomial times a binomial. Foil. So we're going to have to FOIL this one. So I still have 60 on the left. I'll move it over in a second, but I'm going to wait till I FOIL so I can see what I'm going to combine the 60 with when I move it over. So as I FOIL, I multiply the first two. What's x times x? X squared. Multiply my outside 2, x times negative 8. Negative 8x. X times negative 8. We'll get the negative 24 in a second. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 8, negative 8x. Look at the 3. 3 times x. Plus 3x. And then 3 times negative 8. Negative 24. So as I combine on the right side, what things can I combine on the right side? So what is negative 8x plus 3x? Minus 24. I want to solve this. I notice that it is a quadratic. So I want to do square root or factoring or quadratic formula. Cannot do the square root because of the negative 5x because I have a single x term. So I'm going to have to get it equal to what? 0. How would I do that? Minus 60. And I notice on the right side there is that negative 24 I can combine it with, so I'm going to put it right underneath it. So I have 0 equals x squared minus 5x minus 84. As I look at this, I want to try to factor. So I can start with my 2 parentheses, x's in front. And once again, negative 84 is not going to be a number that I know the factors of very easily. But I notice that it is an even number. So start taking your calculator and start dividing by even numbers. Now first of all, I need to multiply to get a negative, so what are my signs going to be? Plus minus, just like the other ones. So start taking your calculator, take 84 and I will divide by 2, divide by 4, divide by 6, divide by 8, divide by 10, divide by 12. And see if you find two numbers that will add, which will technically be subtracting because they're two different signs, to give me negative 5. So you should all be taking your calculator and start taking 84, divide by even numbers, to find two that add or subtract, technically, to get negative 5.
It's 7 and 12.
Okay, which one's positive, which one's negative?
Positive 12 and negative.
Positive 7, negative 12.
Negative 12, because I have to add to get a negative 5, so the bigger number has to be negative. Good. Have I answered the question?
No.
No, because I want to know the value of x. So we are going to set each one equal to 0. Minus 7, negative 7 equals x. Plus 12, 12 equals x. Is that my answer?
No.
What are we thinking? I see x equals negative 7, x equals 12. Which one am I thinking isn't going to work?
Negative 7.
Be careful though, because the other two we've done, x represented a side length. In number 6, x was a width, and the first one, x was a side length. Now if I look here, does x by itself represent a side length? No, it's x plus 3 and x minus 8. So just because x is negative, so far it's okay because x by itself doesn't represent a side length. But if I plug it in real quick, when x is negative 7, will give me a negative side length. So what's negative 7 plus 3?
Negative 4.
So it gives me a negative side length, so that doesn't work. So be careful, because unless x by itself represents a side length, you have to kind of plug it in to check, will a negative x value give me a negative side length? And I plug in a 12. Did I answer the question now? What is the value of x? Value of x is 12. So you don't have to necessarily put meters, because unless they ask for dimensions, if they just want x, you don't have to necessarily put meters. I wouldn't count off if you did. But.
Do we actually have to set both equations as 0?
No, if you can do it in your head, that's fine. Like if you don't have to do this plus 12 minus 7 part, that's fine. But be careful. I've noticed some of you guys have sign issues when you kind of skip that step.
Oh, all you have to do is switch the sign.
Basically, yes. But be careful when you have a couple steps. Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, we're not going to do all these. We're just going to do a couple of them. Let's look at number 1. This is like we were talking about on the warm-ups. A soccer ball is kicked from the ground with an initial upward velocity of 90 feet per second. The equation h equals negative 16t squared plus 90t gives the height h of the ball after t seconds. So what you need to do with these is not get overwhelmed. They're going to use big words, and they're going to use these things that you may not understand, like initial upward velocity. That sounds hard. I don't really know what that means. Do not get overwhelmed. All they're going to do is they are giving you the equation. So right here, they are giving you the equation. So don't worry about all the words and all that crap. Just look for the equation. If they give you one, zero in on the equation, and that's going to help you kind of figure out what you need to figure out. So it gives you the height of the ball after t seconds. Okay? Just like we talked about on the warm-ups, it's going to look something like this. Here's t, here's the height. I give you the equation. Now I'm not going to graph this equation perfectly, but I know this. First of all, why is this equation going to represent a parabola?
This is the height.
Look at the equation. Why do I know it's going to represent a parabola when I graph it? What type of equation is this? No. What type of equation is this? We've talked about it before. Look at the equation. What type of equation is this? Quadratic, because I see the t squared. So if I graph a quadratic, it always will give me a parabola. So this is going to be a parabola. Is this parabola going to be opening up or down? It's been a while. Down, because why? Negative in front of the t squared. Good. This is opening down. There's a negative 16 in front of t squared. We're just going to say it looks something like this. Now, this isn't a perfect graph, but kind of like we did on the warm-up, we can get an idea. It's opening down. I kick a soccer ball. So if I kick it, it's going to go up, come back down. So it's going to look something like that. Okay, let's look at A. So if I look at A, I want to know the initial or the maximum height of the ball. So like we talked about on the warm-up, the maximum height is basically the what of the parabola. Some of you guys need to pay more attention because we literally talked about this at the beginning of class. The top, which is the what? Vertex. So if I want the maximum height, I want the vertex. Now, what value of the vertex do I want specifically? Because the ordered pair in this case will be 2, h. Instead of x and y, x is t, y is h. So what value of the vertex do I actually want if I want the maximum height? The h, which is the x value or y value? Y value. So I actually want the y value. So if I need to look for the vertex, before I can find the y value or the h value by plugging in x, I have to find x or t. So what was the equation to find the x value of the vertex or the axis of symmetry, which is the same thing? Negative b over 2a. And instead of x equals, it is t equals, because instead of x being in my equation, t is in my equation. So t equals negative b over 2a. We've done all this stuff before, we're just using different variables. So as I look at this, what is my b value in this equation? 90. The b is the value in front of x, in this case it's in front of t. So 90 is b, so negative 90, just like we've done before, over 2 times, what's my a value? Negative 16, because it's the number in front of t squared. 2 times negative 16. You're going to get a decimal, so plug this in your calculator. So what is negative 90 over, what's 2 times negative 16? So plug that in your calculator. You will get a decimal for most of these. So what is negative 90 divided by negative 32? Do what? 2.81. Why do I know that it would have to come out positive? Yes, that. But what does this represent? This tells me the what? Look at your equation. T equals negative b over 2a. So 2.81 represents what? What does t represent? Read your story problem. T represents what? Some of you guys are not paying attention. Seconds. T is in time. Can I have negative time? No, you can't go backwards in time. So that represents how many seconds. That is how many seconds the ball will be at the maximum height. So after 2.81 seconds, the ball is going to be at the top of the maximum height. Does this answer the question? Does this actually tell me the maximum height, though?
No.
No, it tells me when it's at the maximum height, what time it's at its maximum height, 2.81 seconds. It doesn't tell me the actual maximum height. So to find the h value or the y value, what do I do with t? Plug it in. If I wanted to find y, I plugged x back in. If I want to find h, I'm going to plug t back in. So h equals negative 16, 2.81 squared plus 90 times 2.81. Now be careful with your calculator. Remember your order of operations. There's going to be decimals, so I would kind of do this step by step. Do I do negative 16 times 2.81 first, or 2.81 to the second power first?
2.81 first.
PEMDAS, parenthesis, exponent. So do your exponent. So on your calculator, I would do this step by step. 2.81 raised to the second power. And that will give you 7.8961. Now, if you want to, on your calculator right now, I'm going to take that and multiply by what? So times negative 16. So if you want to skip some steps, that's fine. But square it first, you'll get an answer, and then if you just plug in times negative 16, it'll take your answer and multiply by negative 16. And that will give you negative 126.3376. Will someone go touch the screen real quick? So after I got that first part, 2.81 squared times negative 16 got me negative 126.3376. Plus, what is 90 times 2.81? 252.9. And then just add them together. Negative 126.3376 plus 252.9. And you can round to 2 decimal places. What do you get? Someone tell me, what did you get? What was it?
126.57.
Yep. 126.56 is what it rounds to. Because it's 0.562 is what I got. And I always want you to label it. What does that represent? The height. So it's going to be measured in what? Read the story problem. Height is measured in what? Feet? Is it feet?
Yeah.
Does it tell you?
It says 90 feet.
Yeah. 90 feet. So feet. And that is your answer. So if I want to know the maximum height, you're looking for the y value of the vertex, basically, which you know how to do. We're just using different variables. Okay, any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, let's look at part B. How many seconds will it take for the ball to reach the ground? Now, I am looking for how many seconds. So if I'm looking for how many seconds, am I looking for height or time? Time. So I'm looking for t. So if you kind of think about it, sorry, we're trying to get it fixed. So if we're trying to think about it, look at what they're asking for. I want to know how many seconds. Obviously, how many seconds is going to be time. So I'm going to try to solve for time. Now, what do I know when the ball reaches the ground? What is 0? We talked about it in the warm-ups. When the ball reaches the ground, when the ball hits the ground, what is 0? Someone said it. The height. So when the ball reaches the ground, I know the height is 0. That's what we talked about in the warm-ups. So I want to know t. I want to know how many seconds will the ball reach the ground. So what am I going to set equal to 0? Which equation? Which one?
H equals 16.
Yeah. You're good. This equation. Think about it. I know this is kind of complicated, but if you think about it, it makes sense. If I want to know the time when the ball reaches the ground, plug 0 in for h. I know my height is 0. Okay, now it's already set equal to 0. So as I look at this is a quadratic equation. I want to find t. I want to solve this for t. Can I do the square root method? No, because what variable or what term? 90t. I cannot do the square root. So I look at it, let's try to factor. It's already set equal to 0. Is there a GCF between negative 16 and 90? What is it? Negative 2. Negative 2 what? T. So I'm going to take out a negative 2t. Look for a factor. If you can factor it, factor it. So if I take out a negative 2t, negative 2t times what gives me negative 16t squared? 8t. And negative 2t times what gives me 90t? Negative 45. Am I done?
No.
I want to know how many seconds. I want to know t. So what do I do to solve this for t? Yeah. 0 equals negative 2t. 0 equals 8t minus 45. Just like we did yesterday. and then solve those two equations for t. So divide by -2. 0 equals t. And then let's solve. You're going to decimal, add 45. So 45 equals 8t. Divide by 8. What'd you get? 5.625 equals t. Think about it. Does both of those answers make sense? Why does the first one not make sense?
0.
So why 0 seconds is time? So let's think about it. What does 0 seconds represent? The starting point. So if I start at 0 seconds, that's the starting point. It's going to go up and then come back down. So which one is going to actually represent when it comes back down and hits the ground? 5.62. So 0 is fine. I can have 0 seconds, but that's obviously going to be on the ground because the soccer ball is starting on the ground. You kick it up, and then after 5.625 seconds, it hits the ground again.
How do you drop
Huh?
kick it?
I wouldn't be 2. Just leave it like that. I don't really care.
If you drop kick it, it doesn't start on the ground.
You would be correct. It doesn't say we're drop kicking.
Yeah,
A soccer ball is kicked from the ground.
if it drops on the ground, it bounces.
Right. You always have some other alternate whatever issue. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, let's look at another one.
You can't do something like that.
Okay. Flip it to number 4. Okay, let's see. A penny is dropped. We're taking a lot of notes today. That's okay. We're just going to get through them. Penny is dropped off the Empire State Building, which is 1,250 feet tall. If the penny's pathway can be modeled by the equation, h equals -16t squared plus 1,250, how long would it take the penny to strike a 6-foot tall person? So let's think about it. Read it. Do not get overwhelmed because there's lots of stuff going on. Look for what they're asking for. So what are they asking for?
How long would it take to strike a 6 foot?
How long? So if they're asking for how long it will take, am I looking for H or T? T, time. Use words, context clues. How long represents time. So I want to know T when the height is what? What would my height be? Yeah, that's my height. If the person is 6 foot tall, I want to know what is the time when it hits a height of 6. So we'll think about it. What am I going to plug in for H? 6. So start with your equation. Plug in 6 for H. Dylan, stay with me, please.
I'm still here.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I know this looks overwhelming, but use your equation and plug in what they tell you. I want to know T when the height is 6. Huh? You can use square root method, yeah. So as you look at trying to solve this, you can use the square root method because there's no T. So if I'm going to do the square root method, what do I do first? Nope, because I want to get T squared by itself. Subtract 1,250, good. So use whichever method is easiest. Would be the square root, so use the square root. So 6 minus 1,250, I don't know, use your calculator. -1, I could do it in my head, obviously, but that's fine. Okay. I'm lazy, yes. -1,244 equals -16t squared. I cannot take the square root because t squared is not by itself. I have to divide by what? Good. So that divided by -16. No, just give it a decimal. Do decimals with these. Not negative. Dylan, pay attention. -1,244 divided by -16. What is it? 77.75 equals t squared. What do I do next? Square root. So I will have plus or minus, because the square root is always plus or minus, and plug in your calculator. What is the square root of 77.75?
8.8175960.
8.8, you can just round it two places. 8.82. And that represents what? Time. So that's going to be measured in, does it say?
Seconds.
Doesn't say. We can assume it's seconds. If I'm dropping a penny from the Empire State Building, it's not going to take 8.82 minutes to drop. So seconds would make sense. Now, which of these answers isn't going to work? The negative. I cannot have a negative time, so it's just 8.82 seconds. Okay. And let's do 7 and we'll be done for today. Let's look at 7. Okay, Ava is jumping on a trampoline. Her height h at time t can be modeled by the equation h equals negative 16t squared plus 20t plus 6. Would Ava reach a height of 14 feet? So let's think about this. They're not asking for a specific thing. They're not asking for the height or the time. They're asking, will she reach the height of 14 feet? So what do I have to find here? What type of height? So what am I going to have to find that will tell me if it's going to reach a height of 14 feet?
The height per second.
More specific.
In space.
What will I find that will tell me that it's not going to go past this height? So we've already done this before. So what can I find that will say, okay, this is the highest height we can have?
We're going to start to come back down.
Okay, so what's that called?
The parabola.
More specific.
Parabola of the whole.
So what do I need to find that will tell me this is the highest height I can have?
The vertex.
Right. So the vertex is going to tell me the maximum height. So I'm going to look for the vertex. That will tell me the maximum height. If the maximum height is over 14, then we know it's going to reach 14. If the maximum height is under 14, that's the highest height, so it's not going to ever get to 14. So let's find the vertex. So to find the vertex, first of all, I need to find t, and then I'm going to plug it in to find the height. So what's the formula to find t? Negative b over 2a. It's only t because t is in my equation. What's my b value? 20. So negative 20 over 2 times. Okay. Now we should never get a positive or a negative time. So as you go through this, you should always get a positive. So what is negative 20 divided by negative 32? 0.625. And that is seconds. Doesn't know that, I guess, but we'll just assume it's in seconds. That is the time. That tells me nothing about the maximum height, though. If that is the x value or the t value of the vertex, how do I find the h or y value? Plug it in for t. So negative 16.625 squared plus 20 times 0.625 plus 6. Plug this in with your calculator as we do this so that you know how to do this because it's a little complicated. Do your exponent first. 0.625 squared, like that. You'll get that. So instead of having to write down the decimal, save yourself some time. I'm trying not to get in the glare. And you can just put times. So if you just type times negative 16, it will take your answer you just got, so you don't have to type in the decimal, multiplied by negative 16, and that will give me my first part. Negative 6.25. Good. And then multiply your next two together. 20 times, what is it? 0.625? 12.5. So plus 12.5. Plus 6. And then just add them together. Negative 6.25 plus 12.5 plus 6.
Would you the same answer if you added 6 to the 20, the multiplying?
First, you should. Be careful with the subtraction though, but I just do left to right. 12.25. What's that measured in? Feet. And that is the maximum height. So answer the question.
No.
Will it ever reach 14 feet? No, because the maximum height is 12.25, which means it's never going to get to 14. Okay, I know that was a lot of notes. We're not going to take notes tomorrow. It's going to be an Alex day, so you'll be okay. Does this stuff kind of make sense?
Yeah.
I know the words are kind of confusing, but you're just kind of plugging stuff in. Okay.
Hey, are we gonna have homework tonight?
Yes.
I think that this should have been a homework right here.
This stuff you'll see a lot on the ice here, so that's why I wanted to go over it.
Alright, well, is it gonna be additional homework?
No, 8 problems.
8?
8.
So we could probably have it done before we.
No, there's no problems, but
In 20 minutes? Oh, there's only
Huh? Where are you going today? First time at home with my early college.
Oh, people, listen to